Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. In last week's video, I talked to you about how I would reboot the Stargate franchise, and I also mentioned that if I were in charge of the Stargate franchise, a reboot is not the creative path I would choose to go down. So what would I do instead? Well, as the title of this document I have open in front of me specifies, and also the title of this video, I would instead look into writing a continuation of Stargate. I would look into how to most effectively use what has already been established within that world, and then do my best to um, update it, so to speak, to effectively follow up on the potential developments that would have that could have resulted within there and that could have resulted within the uh, within this sphere. The sphere within this world, what exactly would have will have changed within this setting. And now that's something easy enough to propose as a something that you would do. But what would be the elevator pitch for this series? So what is it that I would actually want to do with it? Well, and to that I would say there are three distinct directions that I think I can more or less mold into one singular concept. And these directions are specified right here in this in these bullet points, starting with an years later slash the next generation kind of deal, because the Stargate franchise is what differentiates Stargate from stuff like Star Wars and Star Trek, is that it is very much contemporary to the setting, and therefore it is a very direct exploration of how people today would respond to the weirdness, to the weirdness that would result. And to that extent, Stargate always had this more down to earth, more pragmatic appeal. In, even when compared to, especially when compared to those other shows. So I would really want to bring that contemporary nature, back into the back into the fold. Back into the fold, and maybe potentially focus on on a new series of characters as my as the main figures, but I still want the old ones around, or the previously established ones around, because I think they would contribute a lot and in a meaningful manner to the franchise as a whole. The second point, as it says here, the masquerade has fallen, aka in this case, the Stargate program has been made public. There, there has already been a, over the course of SG1, the Stargate SG1, the Stargate program itself has already been, has been made, somewhat more well known, or made somewhat more well known worldwide, at least in terms of the um, scientists and maybe even archaeologist community, maybe, and also in terms of the diplomatic connections that have been established. They, those people for the most part know, but will have known at the time of the show's initial airing back in the back in the noughties. Uh, but however, for the rest of the general public, it was still unknown, officially denied, but maybe potentially it could have been considered something as of an open secret. Now, now my idea for this for this new Stargate show is for the Stargate program to go public, and therefore to confirm a lot of things that may have officially been previously denied. They may have potentially been previously denied. Therefore, maybe integrating more people and integrating the planet's efforts towards attempting to towards a broader degree of cohesion within the within the galactic sphere. And the final point of contention is something I listed as Game of Thrones, because I kind of wanted to want to make it, to have it lean more in that direction, not necessarily in terms of not in terms of the violence or the nudity or other aspects that that define the appeal of Game of Thrones, but more in terms of how exactly it deals with its how it presents its storytelling. Because you'll remember that Game of Thrones has been told through several different perspectives that were spread throughout the entirety of the setting, and that is something you can very easily do with frickin' Stargate. Given that not only is the franchise expansive enough to where you have these various sites and each of which holding enough fertile ground to build its own storylines, but also the very premise of the show revolves around there being instant communication devices, meaning that there is meaning that all of these that every part of this expansive setting has the possibility to instantly reach out and instantly connect to the other, and therefore you have a great avenue to explore themes of connection, themes of influence, and themes and to some extent maybe even themes of autonomy, which is autonomy and cooperation, which is something that is very which is a topic that has been often revisited in Stargate lore, but also is particularly relevant in today's political climate, with the ascension of various isolationists and exclusionary movements. It is something that also speaks to me personally as a Romanian, particularly because I was born a couple of years after Romania's isolationist foreign policy came to an end, and now that I'm in my early 30s, that that disestablishment of the isolationist policy has led to some very good, very constructive results, but it also left a lot of people somewhat stranded within their understanding of themselves and their and the relationship that they see their country as the one that they are supposed to have within the within the broader political sphere, and within the broader political sphere. And it is for that reason that they more or less target the various associations that these countries are a part of, rather than really addressing the the root cause of the problem. So So, aka there is a new wave of isolationism, and not just in Romania, but really or really all throughout the Western world. Various there are various governments or rather government movements that that push towards isolation, and that push towards exclusion. And I think dealing with that and to some extent attacking the core premise of the setting, and the core premise of the setting would allow for a more more constructive approach towards storytelling. One that also storytelling. One that also has one that will also speak a lot about current situations. So anyway, with all of that gushing out of the way, it's time I go through some of the portions of the setting that I think could effectively be spun off in order to become their own in order to become their own stories. First up, we have Stargate Command. Like this is the most obvious this is the most obvious portion of the setting that around which a new around which a continuation could be spun. Very much the hub of the of this entire operation, and also I'm struck by how small the room looks. When seen from this angle. This room in particular, the gate room. Anyway, as I was saying, this is very much the hub not just of the entire operation, but in many ways of the entire franchise. And it has gone and within a more public program, it will go from primarily a military and research operation to a to one where it accepts like broader diplomatic broader one where that also has to tackle broader diplomatic issues as well. One that one would tackle broader diplomatic issues as well. And I think it would be somewhat interesting to explore the various the changes in the role that that this position would take, and also how its position and thereby maybe even the attitude to how this position in particular as well as its leadership, its on the ground its on the ground ruling really interacts with the other aspects. One of the POV characters that I imagine could be focused upon over this over the course of this new reboot would be could be one from Stargate Command. Ideally, something like a new SG-1 team. But I also want to look into the actual. I also want to make the leader, the commanding officer of the Stargate program. I also think that figure should be more in the spotlight and more directly exploring and dealing with their new role as basically a diplomatic and operational hub. And the person I think, the person or the character who I think would be best equipped to lead Stargate Command would be Major General Samantha Carter, or potentially Brigadier General. I'm not exactly sure, but still, I think it would be very fitting to give the character this this rank. And if Amanda Tapping is interested in returning to this franchise, I really cannot think of any role that would be more befitting for her character. Assuming she is unwilling, I could potentially see Richard Dean Anderson returning to fulfill this role, or to the role of Jack O'Neill and to the position of the commanding officer of the Stargate program, or potentially Ben Browder as Cameron Mitchell, who will have also been elevated to a general rank and taking on this position as as commanding officer of the Stargate program. but still my first choice is Samantha Carter for this role. Next up, we've got the Atlantis Tribune. And by that I mean that within the future of Atlantis, both the both the subgalaxy and the city, I kind of imagine the city itself, first of all, returning to the no, it's not the Atlantis galaxy, the Pegasus galaxy. I first of all imagine the the city itself returning to the Pegasus galaxy, given that it actually arrived on Earth in the series finale. And I imagine it becoming something of a diplomatic hub, not just between the various civilizations of the Pegasus galaxy, but also between the civilizations of the Pegasus galaxy and the end of the Milky Way. Its main hub towards the Milky Way could potentially be Stargate Command, or it could be or it could be something else. But still, the main point of Atlantis is that for all intents and purposes it functions more or less as a United Nations within Atlantis. There would still be a contingent of Stargate program personnel, potentially to do research and maybe provide some military backing or instruction, but it is still primarily an autonomous project of the Pegasus Galaxy denizens, and the main point of view figure within this section of the setting, I think, should be Taylor Emagen. I don't know if that. I have to say I don't recall seeing this outfit in the show, but I kind of have to say, oh no, wait, I think it was when she was pregnant. The character, not necessarily. I'm not so sure about the actress, but anyway, if the actress, Rachel Luttrell, I think is how her name is spoken, or Luttrell, again, not necessarily sure, but if she is willing to return to the role, I think she would be a very fitting. Contributor to this show, because she will have not just proven her mettle in terms of potentially being an active field combatant, but also through her connection to the setting and how she has shown she interacts with most people. I think she would be a very fitting person of leadership within this new association. I could imagine Ronan Dex also going around, potentially being the leader of some kind of combined Atlantis peacekeeping effort. But again, that is assuming Jason Momoa would be willing to return to the franchise, because I understand because his stock has risen quite substantially in the past few years. So he might not want to, or he might be a little harder to get. But if he is willing, and if Rachel won't, then I think she could potentially also work. Though still Taylor is my first choice as a within this position, and Ronan could also be around as a leader of a peacekeeping force. Anyway, moving ahead, we move on to the Free Jaffa Nation. And yeah, this picture is kind of a little bit on the nose. I will freely admit that. #FreePalestine. However, I think it's fair to say that the Jaffa, or more precisely, the effort that went into establishing the Free Jaffa Nation, has to some extent been the main storyline of SG-1. or if it hasn't been the main, then it is definitely among the most and then it's definitely among the most dominant. And in the series, particularly in its latter two seasons, went for quite a bit of effort in order to establish the workings of the society, and what precisely makes it work, why it is as noteworthy and meaningful as it is supposed to be. But it is still however, it is still fragile. It is still fraught with a lot of issues, and it does still face it does still face a lot of and it does potentially still face a lot of issues that maybe the founders couldn't have foreseen, but that nevertheless threaten its integrity. So I very much think that that at least one of the new show's POVs would definitely have to focus up on the upon the Free Jaffa nation, and I think the person who would be the most fitting leader for this nation would be Master Braytak. Yeah. Tony Amendola, I was kind of surprised to see that he was actually, or that I saw him being relatively young when he actually played on when he was actually in this role in his his early 50s. I actually admit I fully expected him to be a little bit older. However, the upside of that is that Tony Amendola, if he is able and wishes to, could very much return to the role of Master Braytak, who now outside of combat sees himself potentially as the as the chief counselor of the Free Jaffa nation, and therefore has obligations allegations that are entirely outside of combat, and he has to figure out how to effectively respond to the necessities, to the requirements of his society, and to the demands that are placed upon them by changing customs. I imagine there could be some regressive Jaffa who maybe not want to see a return of the Goa'uld, but definitely want to see a return of the various social orders that are put in place by the Goa'uld, thereby to some extent maybe maybe enforcing some degree of segregation, and that could be something that he would have to face, and an issue he would have to appease over the course of his mandate. So yeah, that's something to consider, and also, however, it is something that I think he would very much be trusted to tackle due to his history within the association. I could admittedly also see Teal'c within this role. However, to be honest, I kind of see Teal'c more as an ambassador of the Free Jaffa Nation to Earth, given all of his given his history and connection to the Stargate program. And also, I imagine Christopher Judge is, his star has also risen quite a bit recently, given the success of God of War's Norse saga. So he might not be as available. However, if both these guys were available, I still think Teal'c would be a better fit for an ambassador role on Earth, and the Free Jaffa Nation would perhaps be. Would maybe not be better off being led by Braytak, but he would be the more obvious or natural choice within that role. Moving on, we move on to the forefront that I really want to highlight: the United Nations, or Earth, more general. Now that the now that the Stargate program has been made public, and therefore the civilizations of the world, or rather the countries of Earth, are now that the countries of Earth are made aware of what exactly, not just the Americans, but the rest of the G8 nations, and admittedly a little beyond that, have been had been hiding all along. I think it's worth I think it's worth exploring what what their reactions would be, and also how they relate to the situation that has been presented in front of them. Now that they find themselves part of a broader tapestry with new alliances as well as new new hostilities, and how exactly they would ask to participate, or what conditions they would put upon their participation, or what they put upon their participation, or maybe even various other reactions. I could imagine various countries actually retreating from the retreating from the United Nations entirely, because they have been so dismayed by them, which would in turn lead to various agents under alien influence or not, trying to take control, and and maybe have a subtle or quiet invasion of Earth that way. And I think dealing with the problems on this front, also of note, in SG1 Season 8, it was actually established that the Russians have basically been overrun by a global faction that managed to find a foothold on Earth. So how exactly would their rebuild go? How would geopolitics change in light of those circumstances? That is something that is very much worth worth keeping an eye out for, and it would represent a very interesting alternate present for the show. Admittedly, I did say that it is supposed to be somewhat politically relevant and tackle issues we would face, and therefore making it an alternate present maybe doesn't really work. However, there are various other influences within the setting, and some of those influences would perhaps go out over the go out over the world as well, and therefore push it some ways or other. And I think the person who would be of the established cast, I think the person who would be most qualified to handle the diplomatic push and pull that would stem from the United Nations is Richard Woolsey. Again, assuming Robert Picardo is ready, willing, and capable to actually take on the role. I think his expertise within within government associations, as well as with the Stargate program, given that at one point he was the commander of the Atlantis expedition. I think he has a broad insight into both into what makes typical diplomacy work, and also in what makes the various rigors that are found off-world to what makes the various rigors of what makes off-world politics or situations particularly troubling, and therefore I think he would be a very effective as one of several very effective bridges between Earthbound diplomacy and the broader Stargate Stargate diplomatic endeavor. And now that I've established who who most of the good guys would be, who we would be following, it's time I looked into some villains. I already talked about some potential insurrectionary forces, but I want to talk about some external forces that would be that could that are still kicking around as far as has been established, and that could still present a potentially meaningful threat moving forward. Starting with the Wraith. Yeah. If you'll recall, the Wraith actually have the series finale of Stargate Atlantis actually had a superpowered Wraith ship going to attack attack Earth. So and also in season 5 the Wraith have gone through a lot of will have gone through a lot of messed up stuff, heavily curtailing the power that they would have had at some point. At this point, so I imagine that at this point within the alternate present, the Wraith could potentially still be around, but instead of being the overwhelming force that they were at the beginning of Atlantis, they would instead function more like a rogue threat, one that constantly does hit and run ops. And I'm not necessarily sure if they would still need to feed in order to really survive, but I do imagine that there could be some Wraith factions that could try to remove that, and they could try to remove that necessity, not necessarily through chemicals, but through cybernetics, trying to enhance themselves with technology. That was to some extent hinted at in Atlantis season 5 episode, the Daedalus project or Daedalus conundrum. Not exactly sure which, because where it's been shown that there is an alternate universe where or it's not really been shown, it's been hinted at that there's an alternate universe where the where the Wraith and the replicators actually came together in order to combat the threat that is posed by the Atlantis expedition to both sides. However, given that the replicator threat has been eliminated from Atlantis, I still think I think the Wraith could still be alive and could still potentially move towards that, or try to, and maybe try to reestablish their level of control. Not necessarily for survival, but simply for spite, for pettiness. Moving on from them, the next choice for for who the villains could be will be a little surprising, namely Asgard. But wait, I can hear some of you say, weren't the Asgard the good guys, and didn't they all decide to euthanize themselves at the end of SG1 season 10? Well, the answer to both questions is not all Asgardians. In season 5 of Atlantis, I forget which episode, a rogue faction of Asgardians who are more eager to experiment with stuff like genetic engineering and various other more dangerous technologies has been established to exist, and therefore they would be and they would kind of serve as Asgard's dark side within this Stargate continuation, as as a threat that is as a very high level technological threat who could as a very high level technological threat who could pose a technological threat who could could return as a very sizable, very credible menace to the incredible menace to the Stargate program and its allies. Maybe trying to reestablish their maybe they would try to reestablish their former empire in order for them to have a broader base of experimentation. They could even actually cooperate with the Wraith in order to enhance their technologies and improve their in order to enhance their technologies and improve their numbers. And and honestly, having evil Asgardians is going to be quite a menace, especially when you consider just how meaningful the contributions of the Asgardians have been showcased as being over the course of SG1 at least. So yeah, they would make for that reason the evil Asgardians could make for a sizable menace in this new continuation. Next up, the Lucian Alliance. Yeah, the Lucian Alliance is basically it's basically criminals. It's smugglers. It's smugglers. It's drug dealers. It's terrorists. It's it's a group. It's a very large group of foes. Maybe not foes, but of humans who are able to who found a way to seize global technology and use it for their towards their own endeavors. Establish themselves as a base of operation. Establish their own base of operations, and then use it to conduct all manner of illicit operations. As I said, smuggling, and smuggling, drug trafficking, then terrorism and other forms of violent seizure. And they're actually mentioned very briefly at the beginning of Stargate Universe as being the reason why that why the why the main cast of that show ends up being stranded. So it is quite clear that they were intended to still be a sizable threat, and were intended to still be a sizable threat, and therefore still be hostile towards the Stargate program. So I think them having this level of hostility towards. So I think them having this level of hostility towards the Stargate program and their allies would still make for a interesting narration, and it is one that I think would be worth everyone's time, and that would be worth delving into. And finally, last but not least, and perhaps the biggest wildcard of this entire video, the Travelers. And the Travelers have been established in Atlantis Season 3 as being basically space nomads, human space nomads who spend all their lives on ships in order to avoid having to deal with the Wraith. There have been colonization attempts by the Travelers, but I don't think they really worked out. And also, if you consider the aftermath of Atlantis, where you have the Wraith, in disarray, but not Wraith in disarray, and Atlantis also being in another galaxy, and potentially the diplomatic connections between the various worlds not being as strong as they could. I do imagine the travelers very much taking over taking over a lot of the ships and equipment that the Rayful have left behind, and in effect become the Lucian alliance of the Pegasus Galaxy. They could arguably become the reason why the Atlantis Tribune uh, ends up coming together. Coming together. It is a little bit more of a wild card, and I do have to admit it is and I do have to admit it's somewhat interesting how pretty much all of the villains that that I mentioned in this video are factions that are are factions that are at least a little bit on the back foot, which I have to say in many ways changes the dynamic of the show, because it started out as the Stargate program and its various offshoots fighting against overwhelming odds with but with maybe not necessarily superior tech, but superior organization and superior organizational efforts and teamwork. Whereas now this continuation basically sees a bunch of large nations, of large allied nations or factions that are nevertheless somewhat fragile in terms of how effectively they can stay together, facing off against fallen foes, many of whom could potentially be ideologically driven or ideologically or survival driven, and in order to make who could be argued to have a significant merit to their to their causes, to their struggles, and could potentially even find plenty of supporters within the ranks of the good guys. That is and I have to say that is an intriguing new dynamic to consider. One that also reflects or mirrors to some extent the political reality for a lot of Stargate viewers, not necessarily in the U.S., but more outside of the U.S. That they are very much the they are the imperial core, and now they have to handle the periphery, so to speak, make them pretend, maybe not pacified, but make them de-escalate their hostilities. And these are just the ones that would build upon existing tensions. It is very likely that there could be external threats from like other galaxies that could be worth taking a look at, or even going beyond that, there could potentially be alternate universes have been established to exist. So an alternate Goa'uld Empire, an alternate Wraith invasion, an alternate form of replicators could also be shown to swarm in. The list goes on and on in terms of what exactly could happen within this franchise, and that's just talking about big picture threats. There could be a big picture known threats. There could be big picture unknown threats to be explored whenever the whenever the Stargate program expands to new galaxies, for example. Or there could be, there could be a variety of smaller, more contained, but potentially more hostile threats on any number of as of yet unexplored gates in any of the within any part of the established setting. So yeah, that's still a lot. That's still a lot of potential that can be delved into. So yeah, I think you can tell what makes this franchise interesting for me, because not only are there not only is there a lot to not only is there a lot to dig into from what's from what's already been done, there is still so much more that can be mined from it, But that's that's a topic for if the for if the franchise gets revisited. As of right now, I can't talk anymore. As of right now, I have concluded my presentation, and I would like to say thank you very much for thank you very much for listening to it. Assuming you've also enjoyed it, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the concept of this video or my particular implementation of it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. Ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about book-related and literature topics, a link to which you can find in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out should you choose to. If my thoughts on the printed word medium are of no interest to you, then I suggest you stay on this channel and go for my extensive backlog of where I talk about various series, various movies, various albums as well. Also where I do gameplay videos, commentary on, and as well as commentary on a whole variety of different topics. So you are bound to find at least one thing that speaks to you when when going through my channel. And if none of the options I presented sounds interesting to you, then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And yeah, now I'm officially done, and now I really have to go and rest my throat. Fuck. It feels like sandpaper in there. Anyway, until next time, I have been the One Take Man.